Meanwhile, making giant progress, though. A lot of cool stuff going on in the AI field. Um, the most important thing going on at the moment. Oh, we were going to look at what the indexes are doing. Got distracted right away. So down 50 on the half a point on the S&P, half a point on the Nasdaq. Oh, the Nasdaq finally, but 1.5% on the Russell. Ouch. But look, this is what we thought was going to happen. It's just that we thought it would happen sooner. I mean, the consumers are completely screwed. It's just horrifying. Where's briefing.com? Briefing. Dun, 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 dun. Economic calendar. Oh, for God's sakes. Hello? What? Are you going to let me in? So exhausting. I'm still not a robot. Log me in. Thank you. So today's Wednesday. We have some data. We had we have to look at the oil inventories. See, it's how I get my head together. Yeah, this was way less than they thought it was going to be. So mortgage applications down 2.5%. They just keep going down. They were down 8.5. Remember, this accumulates. So it was down 8.5% last week. Now it's down 2.5%. Before that, it was down again. It's going very badly for mortgage applications. But of course, that's true because the rates are going up. So the houses get more and more expensive and more people get priced out of the market. Every time the rates tick up, another whole section of people can't afford homes anymore. And also, how are you going to save up for a house when you're spending $100 to fill up your gas tank? That's also a problem. See, people, here's the problem. All these analysts and all these investment bankers and people like that, they mostly are upper middle class people. And a lot of them never knew what it was like to be poor. They went to because think about the selection process. This is part of the reason society is so messed up, because the people running things are the people who never had to live paycheck to paycheck and never had to worry about the rents and the taxes and the this and the that. You just write it. When you got money, you just write a check. It's like you might go, "Oh, that's ridiculous," but you write a check because there's more money coming in. It's like you don't know what it's like to have a checking account and to have to sit there and say to somebody, I know my rent's due Wednesday, but can you wait until Friday to cash the check because it might not clear if I don't, if you don't give me a couple of days. That's how more than half the people in this country live. That's probably how 70% of the people in this country live. What they call paycheck to paycheck. They are juggling their credit cards. They are stretching out their payments. They're getting payday loans at 18, 20% interest or whatever the hell they charge these days. And God forbid God forbid they get laid off or whatever. They can't. There's no room. There's no budget. And the analysts don't think that way, because if you're on TV and you're an analyst, because this from applying for jobs, if you want to be an analyst on TV, or if God forbid you want to be a Wall Street analyst, you better have gone to a freaking Ivy League school. And if you went to an Ivy League school in the last 30 years, you are either on a scholarship, which means you're a freaking real genius and you probably haven't been poor in a long time, or it means that you were rich in the first place. And your dad was like, yeah, sure, Harvard, 80,000 a year, no problem. Boom, boom. It's, you know, it's getting really crazy. And so these are the people who are telling you that the housing market isn't so bad, the retail isn't so bad, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, I was going to say this, I forgot to say this today. It was an important point. We were talking about power plants. And I was saying the problem is it takes longer to build a power plant than it does to build a data center. So for sure, not maybe, for sure, demand will outpace supply of power for quite a long time. As they build these data centers one by one by one, they need more and more power, blah, 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 blah. So energy is going to get expensive. There is a finite amount of power, and they're going to use a lot more of it. And especially they're going to use a lot more of it. Here's the thing. Households, you know what a brownout is, right? Everybody's had a brownout at some point, or you know, like in the summer when it's too hot, they have a brownout. The electric company has to roll lower amounts of electricity. They actually throttle the amount of electricity that goes to areas, so some of your heavy devices may not work or whatever when there's a brownout because there's just not enough electricity to go around. So they're basically saying we don't have enough energy to power your outside air conditioner or whatever. And that's obviously very inconvenient. So that's peak demand in the summer, but you can't tell a data center that between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock on a 100-degree heat day that they're going to get deprioritized, that they're not going to get their power. They have to have their power all the time. They're running at full capacity all the time. They're serving people who live in America, who live in Japan, who live in China, who live in wherever in Europe. You know, they've got customers all over the world. They are constantly running their data centers. They're not just running it for one country. So, and that of course is weird, right? Because at night they're running it too. So there's a couple of problems, and problem number one is they're competing with you, the homeowner, the existing customer of the power company. When they build a big giant data center, as Bodie ran the numbers today, you know, it could be using as much energy as 500,000 homes. And the biggest electric company in America, the one in Virginia, they just bought the other one. They serve 10 million people. That's the biggest in America. So it's 500,000 homes, and one data center is very significant. But it's not. It's misleading because it's not just 500,000 homes. It's 500,000 homes constantly using peak energy. They don't go to sleep at night. They don't shut down. They don't take holidays. They don't go on vacation. It is constant peak use of 500,000 homes. So it's very understated how much power they're going to draw off the system. And that's a big problem. And so, you know, and so getting back to the housing number, you know, people are just getting nickel and dime to death by this stuff. And the problem is that these data centers, they can afford it. Because let's say electricity is 5% of their total operating cost, right? So if electricity becomes 10% of their total operating cost, that's only a 5% increase. All they have to do is raise their price 5%, which would go from like $19 a month to $20 a month for your bill from data center. But for the homeowners, who are also going to pay the same increase, it's doubling their bills. And their bill goes from $195 a month to $200 a month. So the customer of the data center will get hit with a 5% increase, while the people who actually live where the data center is get a 100% increase on their bills. $20 a month for all of the data center's customers, $200 a month for the people who live where the data center is. That's not fair. And they are building hundreds of data centers around this country. So almost everybody in America will be affected by this. And what does that mean? That means effectively you're going to pay ChatGPT $20 for your monthly ChatGPT, and you're going to pay $200 to the electric company for the electricity being used by ChatGPT. That's fun. I don't mean 200 total. I'm talking 200 extra dollars a month, because that's how much it's going to run up your bill. So the true cost of your ChatGPT subscription is $220 a month. That's really insane, right? Oh, and not only that though, but they're now Anthropic already announced that they are going to start. They're no longer going to sell monthly plans. They're going to sell. You're going to be metered for that. So they're going to basically, effectively, double, triple, quadruple their fees. You're not going to get away with like $20 and it's all you can eat. It's going to be $20 for X amount of computing time, and then you got to pay more. And what does this do? This now makes AI a resource that will then have to be, now you have to compete against companies that can afford to spend much more on AI than you can. Now, of course, the solution to that is stop using AI so much, and that's fine. I agree. I frankly agree with that. I think people are really, the amount of wasteful crap that is done on AI because it's so cheap right now. But it's like a drug. When they start, when the drug dealer moves into town, and they're handing out cocaine, they don't tell you that, they don't give you like a little gram of cocaine and say, it's $200. They say, no, here's a gram of cocaine, here's $50, go try it out, tell me if you like it, come back. They get you hooked on the coke first, then they start charging you $200. Once you're hooked, that's when they start charging you. So that's what's going on. I mean, they've been getting everybody hooked on AI, and now they're going to say, oh, now you're going to pay for it. So you're going to pay with a bigger electric bill. You're going to pay with a bigger water bill. We don't even talk about the water consumption of AI. I mean, that's horrific. That's a whole nother thing. If we don't, we in this country are blessed to have a really good water supply for the most part. This is going to suck it dry. So, electric costs will go up, water costs will go up, treatment costs will go up, because you got to treat the water that gets recycled out through their plant. Doesn't matter whether it goes through your pipe or their pipe, it's still going through a pipe, and it has to be recycled back through the waste treatment plants. So, you're talking about just such a massive tax on the consumers, and nobody has ever said to these people, how about stopping for a minute? Okay, so for one thing, let's put it this way. Does everybody in America need to have OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Facebook, whatever the crap they've got, Microsoft's thing that they've got, which is terrible? Does everybody need to have 10 different flavors of AI? And do all those AI companies need to build data centers that compete with each other? This goes back to the telephone company days. Remember, they came to agreements because it was insane to say to the telephone companies, okay, you're all going to lay cable everywhere. And you're all going to crisscross and create just this whole clusterfuck of wires in every neighborhood. That's how it was for a while. When they first put phones in, it was horrifying. I mean, you like New York. Let me show you. New York telephone lines crisscross. Hopefully I'll get this image. Oh, these are. Oh, here you go. Look, there you go. That's exactly what I was thinking of. Oh, look at that one too. Hello. Yeah, look at this. This is what it used to look like when they first started putting phones in, because there was no rhyme or reason to what they were doing. That's a drawing. Oh my God, this is so slow. What is this? So anyway, so they just had these towers and they put up the lines and one went to the other and to the other. There's no planning and no nothing. It was just a big mess and wasteful, hugely wasteful. And that's what we're doing now. We know that we're going to put this tremendous strain on the power grid. We know we're going to put tremendous strains on the water systems. We know that we're going to have to build all this infrastructure to support it. And yet we're putting in 5 times redundant systems all over the country. That doesn't make any sense. It's all being done like in a crazy haphazard manner that there's no urban planning whatsoever. And that's, of course, that's because the AI companies spent a lot of money to put the Republicans back in power to deregulate everything so they could do whatever they want. They want no rules. They want to be able to just roll over all these places and get everything done the way they want it. And it's crazy. But what are they also doing, though? They're also crowding out the competition, because if you create the environment they're creating of shortages, there are no chips left. All the chips are being bought for the next 2 years. It's the same thing as trying to start a new airline. You can't start a new airline if Boeing is 7 years backlogged on planes. The only way to buy a new airline, the only way to start a new airline is to buy an old airline that's going bust, because you can't get new planes. You go to Boeing and say, "Hey, I want new planes." They're like 7 years. And you're like, "Oh, I was going to start an airline this year." And they're like, "Well, good luck. Have fun." And Airbus has the same backlog. This is the same thing. If you want to start a competing AI company, so let's say I have better AIs than Microsoft or Facebook or any of them, frankly. So that's fine, and it's fine for my little ecosystem. But if I want to put it out on servers and sell it to people, I need billions of dollars. You can't even compete in this market without billions of dollars. We can use and that's why we built the AGI Roundtable, because we have a consulting company, because we can make a niche use for the AIs that are superior to what's on the market, but we can't go head to head with Microsoft. They're building $100 billion. They're spending $200 billion on infrastructure this year. How are you going to compete with that? And so that's what's going on everywhere right now. It's a complete disaster. Where were we? Economic calendar, right? Dun, 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 dun. Ha! I remembered that. That was pretty good. No, not that one. There it is. So we got past the NBA. All right. So bottom line is people. So the analysts. That's what I was saying. The analysts, again, rich fucks that don't know anything. They'll sit there and say, "Well, it's about the rates and blah blah blah." It's not about the rates. The rate. Take my word for it. I'm not going to do the math, but the difference between a 5% rate and a 6% rate on a $300,000 home loan is going to be $50 a month, maybe, right? But the difference between having the difference between having a $100,000 deposit for the $400,000 home so that you can get a mortgage, that's a whole different ballgame, right? People don't have that part. And it's not just that part. The mover got expensive. The mover got expensive. The furniture people got expensive. The appliance people got expensive. Inflation is kicking everything up. So the entire cost of moving and changing your home and going to a new place and getting the deposit together and so on and so forth, it's killing people. They don't have it. They can barely pay their rent. If you can barely pay your rent, how are you going to get out of paying your rent to go buy a house? And of course, healthcare is up. Food costs are up. Everything's up. So 70% of the population flat out just doesn't have the freaking money to buy a house. And that means that the 6 million unit supply of homes is just flip-flopping through and that's the thing, because usually you do the home calculation is based on the fact that 110 million people are homeowners, And therefore you have 110 million potential people to buy a home every year. And every 20 years, let's say somebody flips a home, that means 5 million people a year should be buying homes, right? So, if 1 out of 20 people, 1 out of 20 homeowners flips their home every year, 5 million homes should flip over. We're nowhere near that. We're at like 3. And you know why? Because the mistake is that most people who have a home have no possible way to get out of that home. They can barely afford to stay in the home they're in now. They can't afford to leave it. They can't afford to move. They can't afford to get a new mortgage. They can't afford to put down a new deposit. That's where they're at. So you only have 30% of the homeowners, which is 30-something million people, and they only move once every 20 years. And now you've only got 1.5 million people who are actually able to buy a new home every year. But then they've got to find somebody who's going to buy their home to change it. So now you need 3 million people, which is 10%. All of a sudden you're into unrealistic numbers for how fast homes are going to turn over. And that's where we are. So no, it's not about whether the Fed raises or lowers the interest rate by 1/4 point. That's not what the problem is. The problem is a systemic problem of homes are unaffordable, and that's not the real problem. The real problem is, well, also a car payment is now the average car payment is now $800 a month. I couldn't believe that. I still see like advertised $300 a month for like a Kia or something like that. I don't know why the average is $800, but I guess the problem is there are people who are just paying God knows how much for cars these days. I haven't shopped for a car in a long time. But whatever they are, I mean, I just was blown away by that number. So meanwhile, ADP employment came in strong. People are getting hired. That's what's really saving us. So people have jobs. So they're not unemployed and living paycheck to paycheck and waiting for those checks. They're getting regular job checks and they're living paycheck to paycheck. But it doesn't take much because these people, see, that's the thing. When you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're getting, let's say, $10,000 a month, right? If you become unemployed, you can't live on unemployment, which is $1,000 a month or something like that. You can't go from, how are you going to pay your bills? But a guy making $10,000 a month, the average American making $10,000 a month, that's not enough freaking money to live. They're living paycheck to paycheck. That is really sick. You got to be making quite a lot of money in America not to be struggling. Here's a service PMI, 50.7, a little bit down from 50.9. So that's not healthy going down. Factory orders were up 4.8%, and we can do a chart on this one. Maybe. Oh, come on. Can you believe this crap? Yeah, he doesn't remember what I was doing. Wow. Factory orders. There we go. Ooh, what does it say? Durable goods. Oh, is that also here? Durable goods down. Ooh. Non-durable goods, non-defense goods. Oh yeah, defense. That's why. Okay, so defense obviously is included in factory orders, and there's that story. So factory orders came in strong because we're bombing the shit out of people. ISM manufacturing also obviously getting stronger because of the war. This is April after the war started. This is May after the war started. Non-manufacturing, but people need services too. They need bomb polishers or whatever the hell they have over there. Halliburton and stuff like that. Here's the oil inventory, and we're about to get the beige book. We'll see how that looks. So now we can take a look at the petroleum status report. And here we're seeing cutbacks because there is demand destruction. tiny. Okay, so we got May 29th is correct. Okay. Oil inventories decreased by 8, but gasoline inventories increased by 3.4 million barrels. What? And it's funny. I never say what. I was just thinking that girl said, Amber said what. I was thinking of the stupid sketch, and I just said what. So then distillates increased by 1.5 million also, and propane increased by 2 million. So oil in the SPR, look at all the oil they took out of the SPR from 365 to 357. 8 million barrels went out of the SPR. But if it wasn't for 8 million barrels coming out of the SPR, we would have, our inventory would be pretty much where it is now. This would be 182. And also, if you look, it's interesting because even with the war, last year we had 436 million barrels, excluding the SPR, of commercial inventory. We have 433 now. So we've barely been touched by this war. We had 228 last year of gasoline. They're 215. Distillates were 107. Now they're 102. All other oils are actually higher than they were last year. And the SPR is down. We use what is that, 43? We use 44 million barrels of oil. So 10% of the SPR has been withdrawn. But look at this bullshit, though. Last year, we exported 5 million, which is still sick. We exported 5 million barrels of oil a day. We're a country, we don't now, well, I've done this math before, but I'll do it real quick. Look, if we're exporting 6 million barrels a day, that means we're not using 20 million barrels. We're using 14 million barrels. The other 6 million we're exporting. That's not using. That's not what America uses. So we're using 14 million barrels a day, and we've increased our exports by 1 million barrels a day. So 1 divided by 14 is 7%. We've increased our export output by 7%. And if you take that 1 million barrels a day times how many days? I mean, what day are we into this year? So let's say it's 150 days. So 150 days into the year. Is that right? Yeah. So 150 days into the year, we have depleted 150 million barrels from our inventory because we're exporting 150 million extra barrels. That's kind of crazy. During a war, when there are shortages and when American prices are going up and up and up, we are exporting more and more oil. What the frick kind of policy is that? Last year, oil was 61. Now it's 91. Gasoline was 192. Now it's 319. Now, notice this is up 50%. This is up like 60%. That's interesting, right? But everything's going up. But the bottom line is, last year they produced more. No, I'm sorry. Here's last year. Last year, I'm sorry, they produced less last year. And now they're producing more, 600,000 barrels a day more, but they're exporting more. That's why we have these draws. We have these draws because we're shipping an extra million barrels a day out of the country. We found new customers to ship oil to that we didn't have before. And the crazy thing about that, though, is also, if you're exporting 6 million barrels times 365 days a year, that's 2.1 billion barrels. So now here comes the bad part. Hello, Google. How many barrels of proven reserves, proven oil reserves does the U.S. have? The United States has 46 billion barrels of oil. Okay? So, of our 46 billion barrels of oil, we're exporting 2 billion barrels. That's just the exporting. We're exporting 2 billion barrels out of the country of our 46 billion barrels of oil. But we are extracting 20 million barrels a day. So that's 20 million barrels a day times 365 days, 7.3 billion. So if you take 46 divided by 7.3, we have 6 years worth of oil left in America before we have no U.S. production, before there is nothing left. And yes, they count shale when they're counting our total reserves. So in 6 years, this is why Biden thought it would be very important for us to get off oil. Because when Biden was president, we had 10 years. And they cared about that. And they said, you know what we got to do? Drill, baby, drill is not the answer when you only have 10 years worth of oil left. What you should be doing is cutting your usage in half so that then you have 20 years of oil left because you cut your usage in half, and putting everybody on alternative energy that's not oil-based, so we don't have to put ourselves in a situation where we can be choked out by foreign countries. But we're doing the opposite. We killed the programs to create clean energy. We don't have an alternate energy program. We have a drill, baby, drill program that is sucking up 8 billion barrels of oil a year from our 40 billion barrel reserve of oil. Not strategic reserve, total oil in America gone. We will have sucked up all the oil. And by the way, proven reserves are not necessarily recoverable reserves. Here, that's a good follow-up question. When it says proven reserves, does that mean recoverable? Or will some remain in the ground pending technology improvements? Proven reserves is oil that is already technically an economic. Oh, okay. All right. So it is. All right. So that's 46 million. So we have 6 years. That's 2 years of Trump and then 4 years. So whoever the next president is, unless they do something incredibly drastic, during that person's term, we will run out of oil. We will go from being an exporter of oil to a 100% importer of oil in 6 years, thanks to the current policies. We will be the world's bitch when that happens. And this is, nobody talks about this. It drives me crazy because it's like, it's not even it's, you know why? Because look how much time I have to spend explaining it. It is not an easy conversation, and it's hard to convince people it's even true because they just don't understand it. But we do not have a huge amount of reserves. And we're acting like we're Saudi Arabia. Okay, so world oil reserves. Okay, here's a good one. Dun, 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 dun. So that's us, 45 billion barrels. Oh, I wonder why we attacked Venezuela. It's an economic necessity. They're the ones that have the oil. Here's Iran. Oh, we attacked Iran too. Isn't that interesting? We attacked Iraq. We attacked Iran. The Saudis we made friends with. They've got 300 million also. So basically, all the oil in the world. Canada. Trump doesn't like Canada either. He's just itching to go there. So Canada has 171 billion. But again, it doesn't matter how much. All these people together, we're still going to all run out of oil at some point. But the most important thing is we, America, only have 45 billion barrels of oil, and we're pumping 8 billion a year out. That is the most disastrous foreign policy we could possibly pursue. It is a suicidal foreign policy. There is basically no way in hell in the next 6 years that we are going to have an alternative at the pace we're going. We're not going to have any alternative to our own oil. We are addicted to our own oil, and Trump has pushed us the exact opposite way. He has undone the progress that was done under Biden, and he is now pushing it the other way. And by the way, keep that in mind when you're thinking of investing in Exxon, Chevron, and whoever. That's why these guys are all heading over to Venezuela again. This was all planned. They're not stupid. They see it coming. We invaded Venezuela, so Exxon and Chevron, all the companies that they kicked out, Venezuela kicked those companies out of the country for exploiting their people and ransacking the wealth of the country, which is obviously 300 million barrels of oil. Venezuela should be like Saudi Arabia. Everybody in the country should be rich. But no, it was corrupt and poorly run and poorly organized and so on and so forth. But Venezuela should be a huge, prosperous nation with all this oil. And so, but they kicked out the American companies, and from that point forward, we were at economic war with them. And now we have forced our way back in. I mean, it's sick stuff going on. It's in our name. Oh, and by the way, Russia only has 80 million barrels. They're in better shape than us, but not for long. I mean, 20 years from now, we're both going to be bone dry for oil. And of course, it's a cascading effect, right? Because the world uses 100 million barrels of oil. There is 3, 4, 5. Count that. So 5 and 3 is 8 and 10 and let's say 15. Let's say it's 15 overall million barrels of oil. I'm sorry, 15 trillion barrels of oil, right? So 15,000 billion. Wait. 100 million barrels a day times 365 days is 36 billion. So 15,000 billion is 15 trillion barrels of oil. And I hope I did that right. Seems wrong, right? It was 1.5. I mean, it's 1,500. It wasn't 15,000. It can't be. So it's only 1,500. So 1,500. Oh, I forgot the other number now. 36. Okay, so it's 1,500 billion divided by 36.5, 40 years. In 40 years, we will use up all of the oil in the world. So climate change solved. No more oil. There won't be any more oil to burn. So I guess maybe that's their plan. Maybe that's how they're fixing climate change. They're going to burn all the oil now, and then there'll be no more oil left, and then the climate will fix itself, hopefully, because we'll stop burning fossil fuels. I don't know. I really. But so the whole world grinds to a halt in 40 years if we don't get the world off of solar. So should we wait 20 years and then start, or should we do something now? So the previous administration's logic was, we better do something now. Most of the world is actually doing something about it. We're not doing, obviously, anything about it. We're fighting people who do something about it. But from a policy standpoint, at the rate we consume oil and the rate that we send it out of the country as well, we're committing suicide. We are going to be beholden to this country and this country and these countries. They are going to be our bosses. Because at any time, just like Iran's doing right now, at any time they can say, hey, guess what? I'm going to flip a switch and you get no oil. Have a nice day. This war is a preview of the situation we'll be in on a daily basis as the first major country to run completely out of oil. And we are the country most addicted to oil, because the whole world, with 8 billion people, the whole world with 8 billion people consumes 100 billion barrels, but we consume 20 billion barrels. And we only have that many people. So we can, that's really crazy. So 5%, we're 5% of the world. So 5% of the world consumes 20% of the oil. And we're the ones running out. Well, of course we're running out because we consume all the oil. I guess it was pretty obvious that was going to happen. But it's happening in such a short period of time that nobody's really pricing this in. Nobody's got this modeled. So that's insane. And we're going to get the Beige book any minute, so we'll find out what they have to say about people's situation. But anyway, so now we're lined up on that. What else are we going to talk about? Let's see if we have any questions. Where is the question thing? Here it is. And Brad says, hi, Phil. I think you saw the Jeff Bezos interview a couple of weeks ago, and you might have made a quick mention that you disagreed with him on his views on AI. How do you see it differently than him? Where do you agree and disagree with his other parts of the interview? I'm sorry, but I only vaguely saw it, and I don't even remember what the hell he was talking about. So if you can remind me what he's talking about, I'll tell you whether I agree with it or not. But in general, and again, as we know from movie stars and baseball players, right? Even if you had humble beginnings, and even if you seemed like a normal person for 20-something years, becoming incredibly wealthy and being surrounded by people who take care of you all the time very, very quickly corrupts. Like they say, power corrupts, right? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think that's Machiavelli or something like that. So even with the best intentions, you see what happens to movie stars and athletes and whatever. They become completely out of touch with what normal human beings go through, okay? Now, imagine being Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever. These are people who work and build a company, and they've got 1 million employees, hundreds of thousands of employees. So their day, doesn't matter how rich you are, you don't see these guys out very much. They go to their conferences, they'll go to Davos or something like that, but they're not out and about on a regular basis. I think the guy who has the best is Jensen from NVIDIA. He seems to like have all the time in the world. I don't think he puts a day in the office, that guy. He's always somewhere talking to people. But not Bezos. He's working. Zuckerberg's working. It's they're incredibly wealthy, but they're very out of touch because they live in this incredible offices and they've got security guards and they've got layers of people. You can't just walk up to these guys. You got to go through like 8 layers before you get to them. Well, those same 8 layers are the 8 layers they need to go through to have a real conversation with a human being who's not one of their workers. So they get out of touch. You know, Jeff Bezos doesn't think it's weird to charge people, I don't know, 20 million, whatever the hell he charges. You know, like, how much did he charge? I don't even know. Some huge amount of money, right? What does it cost to ride a rocket? Well, I don't know. There you go, 450 to 5. Okay, so 450 to 55 million. It's a big spread, man. That's Virgin. All right, Blue Origin, 1 million plus. Initial maiden flight sanction. It's 28 million. Jesus Christ. Now, see, it's confusing what they say they'll charge to what they're actually charging. But anyway, $1 million, $500,000. What's the difference? It's just an insane number. It's the same thing with going on a plane. They've got these, and it's not just Jeff Bezos. There's a lot of people that rich. You know, there are first class cabins on planes that have showers and bedrooms. Like they have an actual bed in the cabin or whatever the hell I don't even know what you call it. You go to the front of the plane and there's a freaking apartment in the front of the plane for super rich people, and they pay $100,000 to fly to Europe on it. You know, and it's only an 8-hour flight. You really need all that? I mean, I get it. I went to Thailand a few years ago, and I had one of those lay down sleeper seats. I had a first class seat with a lay down sleeping thing. I frankly, I don't know. I could not have made that flight if I didn't get a first class seat, because I mean, 17 freaking hours in a plane. But even with all that luxury, it's not. It's still unbearable to be on a plane for that long. But that thing laid flat and whatever, so it was like a bed. But that right there was great. Would I have been better off with a mattress on the floor or a bed or whatever the hell they had, and a refrigerator and a shower? I mean, I would have been a little bit better off, but not $100,000 better off. Yet there are people who do this. There are people who pay $10,000 a night for hotel rooms. That's why these things are around, because people do it. What was $400,000? Shit, there was just an event where the Kentucky Derby, $400,000 for a box seat. Not a box seat, I'm sure you get the whole suite or something, but there's like the suite at the Kentucky Derby, $400,000 for a horse race that lasts 3 minutes. I mean, I know it's a whole event, but seriously. Oh my God, that to me cracks me up. I mean, it's a horse race. It's not like you're seeing the best horses of that year, but that doesn't mean you're seeing the greatest horse of all time. It doesn't mean it's like you can't possibly be the home team for the Kentucky Derby. You didn't grow up watching the horse. The horse is only 3 years old. It's like you probably didn't know the horse's name until like a week or two before. It's just crazy. But everything's crazy. Prices are out of control. Things are out of control. Consumers are getting squashed. That's what I was trying to say. And then the other part of the topic that we were going to talk about was, oh shit, that's right. We got a lot of stuff. We had this whole agenda. What is that? Oh, now I'm screwed. Now I have no idea what the webinar is about. Oh, wait, Maddie does a thing. Good job, Maddie. She puts the title of what it is. See, and she always asks me, and I'm like, I don't know. The Beige book, just about to come out. Portfolio review and top trades. Right. All right, so let's talk about that. Recent top trades. That's a good topic for right now. Then we'll get to portfolio review after, hopefully. I don't think the beige book will take too long. He said confidently. All right, so top trades. So in the last since May 1st, so in the last month, we've had 4 top trade alerts. We had SoFi Financial, love them. We had Medtronic, MDT. Oh, let's take a look. SOFI. What is? Oh, don't do that. Now includes. There's like a moon symbol somewhere. Damn it. I really don't like this mode. What's that? Ugh, so annoying. Oh, there it is. Theme. Bastards. Thank you. So SoFi Financial, which we picked up early. That was the first one we did. So like May 1st or something. So it was down here. It's back down here so you can get back in again. I know the short looks kind of scary, but that's where we picked it up. Is we decided this was cheap enough, and we grabbed it. We didn't buy it before. When this drop happened, I liked SoFi for a long time, but when this drop happened, we said, "Oh, let's get back into it." Now it's a top trade. That's too cheap. So that's SoFi. Then we got Medtronic. So I'm not going to go over the trades because you can look them up. We'll just talk about. SoFi's got phenomenal growth, great banks, so on and so forth. Here's Medtronic. And again, that was on the 18th. So you can see how it works because what? Just close that window. So on the 18th of May, we decided to pick up Medtronic, and I like their medical devices. They're growing fast. The population's aging. I mean, people are falling apart. They need spare parts. So that's what I like about these guys. For whatever reason, they drifted down into earnings, and then they shot back up. But that's great because we got everything filled, and we're happy. Then we go to Macy's, who we just put on the other day. So now we go from Medtronic to just the M. So at this line, we decided to go for Macy's. They had good earnings, but nobody seems to care. So the gap EPS 500% up. But anyway, so 324% beat of earnings. Revenues up 1.5%. So anyway, they're doing well and turning things around. And what does it say here? Let's see what it says. Macy's beats, raises their sales, raises their EPS, but guides their Q2 below consensus. I don't care if they raise their sales outlook and they raise their estimates and they raise their EPS outlook. Why for the year? Why do I care if they say Q2 won't be that great? So you believe that Q2 won't be that great, but you don't want to believe that Q3 and Q4 are obviously going to make up for it because they raised guidance for the year. That's foolish. So fiscal revenues 4.7 billion, up 2% year over year. Second quarter EPS set at 29 to 34, but it was set at 36. Company maintained full year, but the full year is still going to be 7.7 margin, and their full year sales and earnings forecast, blah, blah, blah. So not bad. So anyway, I like Macy's. It's still completely playable, obviously, at that level. And the next one was, which we just did yesterday, was Alcoa. And I love Alcoa. The aluminum thing, it's aluminum is constricted in the Gulf. But the more important thing, though, is aluminum is extremely critical metal for cooling all these data centers. That's what they use to cool everything. They use aluminum. They it's like your refrigerator, right? Your refrigerator has aluminum. It's you make the aluminum very cold, and it quickly conducts the heat away from whatever's. So heavy industrial use for aluminum. There's no, again, it's like a power plant. There are aluminum miners, but they can't just like double. They can't they can't get an order for twice as much aluminum and say sure right away. It doesn't work like that. It's incredibly difficult to start a new mine and get everything going and so on and so forth. So it's not going to happen. So aluminum is going to be heavily constrained for a long time. Plus, I make airplanes out of it too. And tin cans. So we like alcohol also. All right, so we liked it yesterday and it popped and now it came back a bit, but still long-term story, we love it. So 4 really good top trades in the past month. And at the end of June, we'll do a top trade report for the second quarter. If you go back in time, we always do top, we do a when would we have done one? Top trade alert, top trade alert, top trade alert, top trade alert. Nope, I guess the last one we did was January. I think we do them every 6 months. Here's Barclays has really taken off. Best Buy is doing well. Google, of course, is doing great. ConAgra, not so great. Nike, terrible last couple of days. Holy crap. They really fell apart. They were getting better, and then they crashed. Look at that. They were all the way up to 47.50, and now they've collapsed back to 43. That's 10%. That's really bad. This is a giant company losing 10% is $6 billion just going up in smoke. But, if you look over the longer term, I mean, this is where they are. They're kind of stuck in this sort of range down here. Because they're not cheap. 23 times earnings times forward earnings, 28 times current earnings. They are not cheap. They're a company that's eroding. Here's earnings, like super erratic, right? Here's sales, no longer growing. They're barely hanging on to their sales. They've done some share buybacks, but not enough to offset this damage. Look at this. Downgrade. That's not good. And the last couple of guys have given them $45 targets, so people don't even think they're going to escape this area. Nike is a mess. So I apologize for that one. It's not our best. Oh no. Son of a bitch, I closed that window too. You are kidding me. Oh, there's one. I'm going to put this back. Oh, we're going to look at top trades. So here's Signature Bank, UPS. I said Nike. Cleveland Cliffs has also taken off. HPQ is taken off. OWL is fluctuating. Geo is taken off. And there's our other review. So you can go back there and check it out. So it's not going to be like, we have to finish the month and then I'll do the review. So maybe sometime in July I'll get it done. But this review is very helpful because it tells you everything that happened before that. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's 10 trade ideas for 2026. Oh, look at all the nice stuff we give you guys. Holy cow. GNRC is really popping. Generator company, HPQ is really popping. It's very good. All right, so where's GNRC? Did I lose that thing too? No, there it is. Maybe if I stick to touching the top of these things. What is that? Oh no, you're kidding me. I just made that disappear too? What is going on? Oh, that's awful. You think there's a way to stop that, like to lock these things so they don't get easily hit? Or you can not have 50 tabs open. That would be good too. GNRC is a company I was banging and banging the table on for a couple of years, and finally they've taken off. Like all down here, I was like, this is a great company. Why aren't people buying it? Still great, still doing good. Now, obviously, Generac backup generators. Who needs backup generators? Power plants, yay! And data centers. So fantastic for them. They're getting much more commercial business than they used to get, and they're gonna be back ordered for years. So even though it's gotten a little bit expensive, it's still a great company. So that we were gonna look at. Let me get back to PhilStockWorld. And we did our portfolio, right? So the $700 a month portfolio. Wow, that's hard to see, huh? There's no pluses here. Oh, here you go. That's not going to work. Let's sign in. Nope. Hello. There we go. Oh, now the beige book is out. Okay. We'll get a rundown on that in a minute. It won't take long. $700 a month portfolio. We have ConAgra, Helen of Troy, IPF, SQQ is a hedge. We have OWL, which we just talked about. CLIS, we just talked about doing well. Natural gas, I'm very confident that'll hold $11. Barrett Gold, Energy Transfer. So anyway, so the bottom line is we did a whole review, and you can read it here. I'm not going to sit there and make everybody squint at it now. And we get into real big detail. Here's the prior 12 months worth of reviews. We're up 289%, which is pretty good. And obviously in each one we said how much money of upside potential. So when you look at a position, you say, "Oh, do I want this position? This one's going to make 31%, so no." This is a downside. This one will make 90%. This one will make I didn't do the math on that one. UNG, we pay $12.50. All right, so $12.50 is almost 100% on that one. This one has 122% upside. So, it's not hard to decide if you want to have a trade. This one's got 126% upside. This one's got 69% upside. And we write these numbers down, and it's like, oh, that sounds like a lot, but you know what? Realistically, we're up 300% in 3 years, in 4 years. Sorry, so it's almost 4 years. We're up 400%. That's 75% a year. That's our average. So when you see that we're telling you a trade is going to make 69%, 100%, whatever, yeah, because we use options to leverage the plays, but we're not using any margin. So it's low-level options trading. And that's how we do that. So, Mr. Google, what am I looking for? Beige book. Find me the Beige book. Okay, up. Gotta pick the right one. Fantastic. Oh, I don't want all that. Nope, that's it. It's not very long, is it? That's really shitty information. Now we go to Mr. Warren. Where are you, man? Beige book time. When was the last one we did? Okay, so that's right, I think. April, yep. Okay, good. La da da. Okay. Here's the new one. Give us a rundown, including what changed and what are war effects and what are deeper economic concerns and why. Yep. All right, so this Beige book is not recessionary, but is clearly more uncomfortable than the last one. One note, the prior upload file appears to have expired. I'm comparing mainly against the last Beige book discussion plus the new text that you pasted. Okay. The economy is still growing, but the quality of growth is deteriorating. Growth is still positive across most regions. 10 of 12 districts, and we see this in the manufacturing data, it was getting better. 10 of 12 Fed districts reported slight to moderate growth, with one flat, one down. That is not a collapse, but underneath that, consumers are more strained, which we just talked about. Inflation is broader, margins are tighter, and hiring is frozen in place. The report is basically saying war shock on top of late cycle consumer fatigue. What has changed? And by the way, good point. There's an economic term for what this is: late cycle consumer fatigue, because economies have cycles. So, economic. What? That's weird. Economic cycle. Expansion, contraction, business peak, recessionary trough. These are the elements of an economic cycle. So expansion, information technology, financials, communications, consumer discretionary. Outperformers, financial, energy, materials. Contraction, healthcare, consumer staples, and utilities. And in the next recovery stage, you'll do real estate and industrials. So it's normal for the economy to expand and contract and expand and contract. That's just normal stages of a cycle that have been going on for 1,000 years. Yet people act surprised every time it happens, which is crazy. What changed? Growth improved a bit, but became more uneven. The prior setup was more slow but stable. This one shows more manufacturing strength tied to defense, data centers, and industrial demand. No kidding. Everything's being driven by the same narrow little band that was driving everything before. Manufacturing increased modestly to strongly in 9 districts, which is a real positive. But that strength is not flowing evenly through the consumer spending. The economy, consumer spending is described as mixed and increasingly bifurcated, with higher income households resilient, middle income households stretching dollars, and lower income consumers under visible strain. Inflation worsened. Prices increased at moderate to strong pace, and most districts reported higher inflation than the previous report. That is a key Fed change. The April book was already dealing with energy pressure. This one says the pressure broadened: shipping, packaging, groceries, and fertilizer. So widening, spreading, worsening inflation is a big, big deal. Labor is stuck, not weak. This is a late cycle condition. Low hire, low fire. We hear this constantly. You hear it so often. It's probably true because it's all anybody ever says. Low hiring, low firing. People are just, everybody's just sort of like holding in place, waiting to see what happens right now. Employment showed little or no change in 11 districts, and hiring is mostly limited to critical roles or attrition and replacement. That means we are not seeing mass layoffs yet, but we're not seeing any kind of labor demand yet either. Workers are reluctant to switch jobs. And we talked about that because there's 7.6 million open jobs, but only 110,000 people got hired last month for 7.6 million jobs. That means it will take us 76 months to go through the open job. So for the people who want to hire people, they're going to wait 76 months to hire the people they want to hire. The people who are looking for jobs, it'll take 76 months for them to all find jobs. That's insane. Those numbers are crazy. And what is that telling you? It tells you that the apparatus for hiring and firing, the labor employment apparatus is broken. And I can tell that from my daughter, because my daughter, and it wasn't just her, it was her friends too. My daughter went to Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, which is nice techie stuff. They were a bunch of smart kids. They were all go-getters and qualified and all that stuff. And she had 5 people in her house, including herself. And they all had trouble getting jobs out of college. It was just crazy. In New York, basically in New York City, for people graduating with technology engineering degrees, they had trouble finding work. And I mean, for months, like they were getting really pissed off and very frustrated for the whole summer trying to get jobs and stuff. And one by one they found them, but they would send out hundreds of resumes. I've never sent out hundreds of resumes. I said, we remember. All right, I haven't worked for anybody else in like 30 something years, so I'm not a good example probably. But 30 years ago, we used to open up the newspaper. There was a help wanted section. And when you needed a job, you would look at the jobs and say, I want to work at that place. And you would then go down to that place, or you might fax in and call them or whatever. But mostly you would go down to the place, give them your resume, where you wear a nice suit, go down to the place, give them your resume and say, I'd like to come work for you. And they'd say, sure, here's an appointment with our HR person. And 5 times maybe you would do that and you would get a job. You'd be, a lot of times, well, it depends on who you are, I guess. But, generally it wouldn't take that long for you to get a job. Somebody was going to hire you because they had an ad in the paper. It said they wanted to hire you. They're paying money to tell you they want to hire you. Now, you get, first of all, when you want a job, you see every job in America, which is stupid. I mean, obviously you can narrow the search down, but realistically, why do I care about every job in America? I mean, I guess some people like to relocate, but again, look at the cost of relocating. It's like if I have $5,000 to uproot my life and go to California to get a job? What if it doesn't work out? What if I think I got to fly back and forth for $1,000 to go do just the interview? It's crazy. Um, but depends where you live, depends what you're trying to do. But somehow the job market has gone national. And that means, though, that if you live in New York, now people from California and Texas and so on and so forth are freaking applying for the job. And instead of having 50 resumes to go through, they've got 5,000 resumes to go through because 5,000 people around the country applied for the job. So, yeah, of course, the HR departments are overwhelmed. And of course, the students are getting constantly rejected from job after job after job because you no longer have to be the best person in your area. You have to be the best person in the country for the job. And the problem with that is, well, first of all, it's ridiculous. Second of all, um, the problem with that is that the employers have that attitude where they're like, if you don't check every single freaking box we have, we will bide our time because we still have 4,800 resumes to go through before, and they're running them through AIs, and you're running it, you're putting it out through AIs, and it's just insane. So it's broken. The system is broken. So nobody ends up getting hired. I've never seen anything like it. And what does that do? That means if you lose your job, you could be in for a prolonged period of unemployment. And and obviously, like I said, $120,000 person loses a job. It's pretty traumatic if they can't get another one. It's working at McDonald's for a few weeks is not going to cut it to pay your rent. You're sitting in a new. That's the thing. You relocate yourself. These people from all over the country, they relocate to New York City to get $120,000 job. They're making $10,000 a month, but half of it goes to taxes, and they're paying $4,000 a month for the apartment, so they're broke. Just the apartment is $4,000. So how are you going to live? You're only taking home, let's say $6,000. Let's say you're taking home $6,000 a month, and $4,000 goes on the apartment. The only good thing about New York is you don't need a car, but you still need to get around. You're paying for transportation. You're paying for food. You might want to wear some clothes. And you don't have a washer and dryer. So if you're in New York, you got to go do your laundry somewhere else. So things are nuts. So that means we're not seeing mass layoffs yet, but we're seeing a strong labor demand. We're not seeing strong labor demand. Workers, we'll see. Well, we'll find out tomorrow for non-farm payrolls. Not tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. Workers reluctant to switch jobs because the uncertainty is rising. That's not a recession signal by itself, but it's a confidence signal. And that means if people are not willing to leave their jobs, they're not getting raises. And if you're not getting raises, then you're falling behind to inflation. What is war related? Energy inflation. The report directly says energy costs tied to the Middle East conflict are the primary driver of inflation pressure. But see, this is how they get off the hook, because they blame the war for the inflation, and they say, well, the war will end, so therefore the inflation is transitory. But it doesn't work that way. It's going to take a long time to get back to normal on the things that are blocked up in the Strait of Hormuz, like more than a month. So it hits all these things. Consumer pressure from fuel. Consumers are not necessarily unemployed. They're being squeezed by affordability. Auto dealers reported soft in new vehicles demand tied to affordability and fuel costs. Customers shifting towards used and hybrid vehicles. This is and you see that's the interesting part. That's why people are switching to hybrids and switching to electric cars to save on the gas, and that's then hurting the demand for oil that these guys were counting on, and that's why we're shipping it all out of the country, because we're not actually using it here. That is a war transmission channel, higher oil, higher gas, less spending, weaker water, restaurants, and retail. Agriculture is taking a hit from fertilizer. The report says ag conditions were unchanged or declined in most districts. This matters because it can keep food inflation sticky. So even after oil goes down, the fact that we had this fertilizer disruption during the planting season is over. Doesn't do you any good if the war ends when they already didn't have the fertilizer they needed to plant the crops. It's over. The planting season doesn't wait for the war to end. So that's a whole year of not lost crops, but lesser crops. You will not be able, you will not scientifically be able to grow as much crops if you didn't put the fertilizer down in the first place. You will have weaker crops. So that's there's no way to stop that. That's going to show up in the fall in harvest season. If we have poor harvest, which is almost locked in now, then that's going to cause big problems down the road also. Business uncertainty, St. Louis and Dallas flag uncertainty, supply chain disruption, fuel costs, transportation costs, blah, blah, blah. That means the war is delaying CapEx and expansion decisions. What are the deeper concerns? Consumer bifurcation. This is deeper than oil. The report says higher income consumers are resilient, middle income households are getting squeezed, and the low income households are basically screwed. Structural affordability issue and cumulative inflation event, insurance payments, credit card, blah, blah, blah. War makes it worse. It didn't create it. These are all things that are happening anyway. Rising delinquencies. Banking conditions were mostly stable, but delinquencies are rising. Residential mortgages, people can't afford their house payments. Consumer loans, can't afford their loan payments, and agricultural loans. And again, this is going to get much worse because the farmers didn't have money. There wasn't, the fertilizer costs went up. They couldn't afford the fertilizer. There wasn't enough fertilizer. They couldn't make it up with getting a new tractors or things like that. They did to do other things to improve their crop handling. So they just basically are struggling through this season with half-assed plantings of crops, and we're going to pay for that badly in the fall, and there's no way to fix it. There's nothing they can do now in June to fix the fact that in March and April they didn't plant the crops. Margin compression, non-labor input costs are rising faster than selling prices. Consumer financing firms have mixed ability to pass through costs. There's a profit problem. Companies can't pass through costs. The earnings estimates get cut if they do. No, but frankly, I don't get into an argument with Warren about it. But frankly, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what anybody earns other than the 10 or 12 companies in the Magnificent Seven's orbit that make all the money. Over 50% of all S&P profits are just the Magnificent Seven. Then when you take into account their ecosystem of other companies that are feeding off them, it's getting towards like 70% of the S&P is just let's say 24 companies, or 70% of the S&P's profits. That is messed up. There's 480 other companies. I mean, that's just a really sick number. So 480 of the S&P 500 make essentially no money, and no money, by the way, is $1 billion. $1 billion now is like no money. It's like, so what? Who cares? We used to, somebody used to make $1 billion. We'd be like, holy shit. Now it's like, you got companies like Apple and Microsoft and whatever. They make every few days they make $1 billion. They make $100 billion a year. These companies, each. Real estate softness. Atlanta reported commercial and residential real estate flat to down. San Francisco, agricultural and residential real estate weakened slightly. More about rates and affordability than the war. So these are non-war items, of course, right? So it doesn't matter if the war ends, those are still problems. The Beige book is hawkish, not because growth is too hot, but because inflation is too sticky. The Fed sees growth is still positive, labor is not collapsing, prices are accelerating. These are not things that make the Fed ease. Business financing, facing pass-through cost pressures, consumer strain, but still spending selectively. The combination does not give them an easy excuse to cut. The war gives the The Fed dilemma: energy shocks can hurt growth, but they can also push inflation higher. If the Fed cuts into that, it risks validating another inflation wave. This supports a barbell. On one side, companies tied to real demand, defense, power, data centers, industrial, services, and manufacturing. On the other, avoidably cautious with the consumer discretionary, like Nike just got trashed. Low-end retail, auto financing, restaurants, and highly liquid real estate. We don't have any restaurants right now. We don't really have any real estate. We don't have any restaurants. We are nowhere near auto financing. We have a couple of consumer discretionaries, and low-end retail. Did we just like look at Dollar General? Somebody. The big message is this is not a demand boom. This is a cost shock economy with pockets of industrial strength. And the pockets of industrial strength, though, are coming from building data centers and blowing things up in the war. That's not a good thing to base your economy on. That means we should not chase everything. We want companies with pricing power, balance sheet strength, and exposure, and to durable capex, not businesses relying on stretched consumers. Yeah, and there you go. I mean, that's a good summary of our position, right? That's what we have this portfolio for. So here's Geo. That's a locking people up company. ConAgra is a food company, commercial food, and they're doing okay. I mean, we think they bottomed out. HP, I just said, he's doing phenomenal. It's probably doing too good. Novo, do we still have it? I thought we cut it. I always think we cut it, but we don't. So maybe we still have it. Novo. Here's Owl. I like them. Here's Permian Resources. Forget that. They're fantastic. So they're going to be exploding. SoFi, we just talked about. The SQQ hedge. ULCC. What? What the frick? It's 422. Oh, I have two of these open. That's why. That was really confusing. I was like, we don't have that anymore. There you go. So uranium, they just took off also. SoFi, Pfizer. Yep, Pfizer drugs are good. Novo, we still have drugs are good. Macy's, there you go. Took a chance with Macy's because we like Macy's as a real estate play. Macy's is way down, and at the price they're at now, which is $5.7 billion, I would say. At this price, they make sense as a real estate play because they have just this building in Manhattan, right? Miracle on 34th Street. They've owned the building forever. It's their block in Manhattan. So they own a whole block in Manhattan. That building alone is probably worth what the whole company is being priced at. Just one real estate. And Macy's, obviously, anybody who lives in America, Macy's is the anchor store of most malls. Macy's is also, if you live in a more of a city kind of place, like a mid-sized city, instead of a mall, it might be like a big store in the middle of your town, like in prime real estate. And again, they own it. They've been there forever. They own it. They paid it off 20, 30 years ago. They paid these places off. And it's just an unrealized asset for the company. All these buildings that they're in. And a lot of times they are leasing, like you don't realize it. 50 years ago, the Macy's was the big building in your town, and they had a big piece of land, and they have over time let that land be developed around them, and they are the landlord for the buildings around. They make a lot of money just being a landlord all over the country. So they've got these big things in malls, and and a lot of times in the malls they have special arrangements also because they were the store the mall was built around. Sears is gone, so it used to be it was either Macy's or Sears. I think Sears used to be Gimbels. I think that's where Gimbels came. I think Gimbels turned into Sears or something like that. But it used to be, forever it was Macy's. And And so basically, back in the day, Macy's and Sears were like every mall in America was Macy's and Sears, and sometimes J.C. Penney or something like that. But it was basically Macy's and Sears, and Macy's owns Bloomingdale's too. So when you see a Bloomingdale's, that's also Macy's. And they own all this land. It's a gigantic portfolio of real estate that's worth much more than the whole company. And they've got a company, and the company makes money. It's not a non-profitable company. Hewlett Packard we talked about, Geo we talked about. That's where they lock all of Trump's prisoners up. Energy Transfer, obviously, pipeline. Natural gas pipeline is a great business. Barrick Gold is still a good business. UNG is natural gas. Cleveland Cliffs, Blue Owl again. What? Oh no, that was because we mixed it up with the old portfolio. SQQ, IPF, Helen of Troy is a retailer. Their gadgets and stuff, and ConAgra, the food that's having the agriculture that's having a hard time, but that's not really ConAgra. ConAgra is more like chickens and things like that. But what don't we have? There's none of the chip companies in here. This is a chipless portfolio, the 700 a month portfolio. The long-term portfolio, we have gambles. Oh, here you go. So in the long-term portfolio, we've got some gambles on things. We have AGNC is a REIT. Barrick again, Best Buy for consumers. Barclays, obviously the huge bank. ConAgra is here too. CEG is an energy company, electrics. Cleveland Cliff is again doing great. Comcast. Notice the variety, but also notice a lack. You won't see a lot of big tech names here. Coinbase is a bet on the crypto markets. Crocs is Crocs. We always like Crocs. Cisco, EPD. What does EPD stand for? EPD. Enterprise Products Partners. I wonder if I could remember what they stand for. That's where we left off. First Solar, because believe it or not, people are buying solar still. Regardless of what the government tries to do, they're not letting them. Gap Jeans, of course. Geo again. GFI is another gold company. Google. There's a first. So we went all the way down the portfolio. This is the first Magnificent Seven company is Google, and it's always been the only one I liked. I don't understand Apple. Obviously, Apple too. Why don't we wait? Don't we have Apple? Huh. I guess we don't have any Apple. Okay. I thought we did. Here's HP just went flying. Helen of Troy. H&R Block. IBM. I always like IBM. Very important. Not IBM, it's Microsoft. Microsoft just came out with a much improved quantum chip, 1,000-time improvement over the previous quantum chips. That's the problem with crypto right now. It is now probably less than 3 years before quantum computers will be able to crack all the crypto codes. So the blockchain that is supposedly the impenetrable wall that protects crypto and allows it to be transferred is now open season for quantum computers. And they're saying, oh, well, now we'll just we'll take quantum computers and we're going to redo the blockchains. But what are you going to do? You're going to tell them to turn in their crypto for something else? The crypto is worthless if it isn't secure. So the people who make this is the bullshit of the whole thing. The people who made crypto, there's 21 million Bitcoins, right? Total. It's a mathematical formula that gets harder and harder to figure out the more Bitcoins you make, but there can only possibly be 21 million of them. That's the limit of Bitcoins. And encoding them and decoding them is how the transactions work. So I have a wallet with a crypto coin in it. I know what the crypto coin's number is, what the key is. So what's the word? Encode. I encode the key and I send it to you along with instructions to decode it. In between, they're two separate things. In between, if somebody intercepts the key without the decoding, they have no idea how to translate it. So it's no use to them. So it is fairly secure for transmissions that you have these coins and you can securely transmit them from point A to point B. You transmit the code and you transmit the decryption key, and that's how you do a Bitcoin transaction. Unfortunately, though, a quantum computer is able to look at the crypto key and say, "Oh, no, I'm sorry." They're able to look at the encoded Bitcoin identifier, right? And the quantum computer says, "I don't need the key. I can figure this out." And it tries every possible combination in the universe, and it says, "There's one. I found it." And that all takes like 10 seconds. Whereas theoretically, it would take infinity time, and that's why encryptions work, because it takes longer to do it than it would be worth it to steal it. Not with a quantum computer. With a quantum computer, it's going to steal $100,000 Bitcoin in 30 seconds. That's not good. And that goes for most of the encryption systems that they have in crypto. Well, not only cryptocurrency, but your bank account, your credit card, everything is going to be open season with these AIs. Not the AIs, with the quantum computers. Now, the funny thing is, though, the AIs are going to be able to use the quantum computers, and there's no point to pretending that anything is going to be uncrackable. And we only have 2 or 3 years to fix this before it becomes a ridiculous problem. Before every single encrypted file that you've ever seen is going to be open. So that's fun. So IBM, Levi's, obviously jeans, Lockheed Martin, can't go wrong with defense. McDonald's is coming out with a high-end line. They're coming out with like more gourmet food at McDonald's. They're going to have fancy stuff. That's interesting. Micron is the one of the big winners for the tech stuff. Nike, big crash. Look at that. We're still ahead. Interesting, but boy, did they crash out. Novo, again, I don't understand why we still have this stock. I don't like it anymore. I don't know why it persists in our portfolios. On semiconductors, Oracle coming back. Owl, we like them. Oxy, Buffett just got rid of his, but I think we're still in it. Pfizer again. Well, Pfizer's our stock of the year, so yeah, Pfizer, obviously. Pulte Homes. Hey, Pulte just took over national security. So there's a winner. Pinterest. Why do we still have Pinterest? I mean, they're coming back, but I'm not sure I like them anymore. Qualcomm. I love Qualcomm. Who the hell's this? Oh, Schlumberger. They're also winning from the war. SoFi again. Stellantis. Chrysler. Signature Bank, like them. AT&T, like them. Target. Doing very well, actually. Toyota, again, love Toyota. I'm losing at the moment. Absolutely one I would stick with and put more money into. Toll Brothers, another builder, and horrible, performing terribly. Jesus, what on earth? That's interesting. When did we get in? We got in February. So this is weekly, 1 year. So we got in February, and now they're down here, and we are taking a big bath on this one. Look at that. Yuck. We have the 150s, and they're at, oh, no, wait. We have the 150 calls, and we sold the 120 calls? That makes no sense. I bet these are backwards. I got to find out. Okay. This doesn't make any sense. Why would we would never have done this. We would never have bought the 150s and sold the 120s. And here's the puts and here's the puts. That makes sense. That I would know. But how that doesn't sound right at all. Uber, we all know who Uber is. UPS and Whirlpool. I'm sorry, I can't let go of Whirlpool. I just think they're just so stupidly cheap. but you see, it's like we don't have a lot of these. We don't have a lot of the Magnificent Seven or that kind of group. We have a few of the top blue chippy ones, but not. We're not chasing that block. We have better things to do with our money, and the proof is in the pudding. We started this portfolio with $500,000 June of last year. Oh, 1 year anniversary right now. So 1 year ago, we started with $500,000, and now we have $2 million. So that's up 300%. And this is not updated, by the way, so it's actually better than this. But so that's 1 year. So so yeah, could we have maybe made more money if we put all our money in Nvidia? Sure, but it was risky. We did this in a much less risky way. We had great diversification and picked lots of different stocks. And that's the way you got to play these things. You can't sit there and just chase, whatever crap is popular, because you can get really burned like that. These are comfortable positions. They're all, every single stock I named, there are only a couple where I said, why do we still have that? But mostly, they're all stocks that we really like a lot. Now, what am I doing? There was nothing else to cover, was there? I did such a good job. Beige book, portfolio review, top trades. Holy crap. That was a great webinar. I think I've done enough. I think we've covered all our bases. Did Brad follow up? Wait, what? No? Okay. Nope, there were no other questions, so that's good. I think there were no other questions. Let me see. Oh, no. Oh, you bastards. I didn't know there were all these other questions. So Marco says, isn't that good on Nike? The price drop since we are collecting premiums, our positions for January 28. The price drop is to the point now, though, where I seriously wonder if the company is even gonna ever recover. Brad says on the Alcoa top trade, ignoring the short-term calls, the naked puts you use 20 lots versus 30 on the bull call spread. Often you use half the lot. So I'm just curious in your thought process. Slightly release the amount of short put, slightly to increase the amount of short puts. No, I don't like to overdo it unless we like super love something. I always want to leave room where we can roll the short puts and double down in case it goes off. So we're not going to always match it up. The real question is, how much Alcoa do I really want to own? And the answer to that is no more than 1/2 of what I ultimately want to own, what I want to be assigned. So if you leave room, I don't know which Alcoa, but in other words, AA. Okay, so let's say an Alcoa, for whatever reason, Alcoa is at 81. The $55 puts are more than $9. So if I sell the $55 puts for, let's say, just $9, if I sell them for $9, that means my net cost is 46. If I get assigned, at 55. I got 9 in my pocket. I'm netting in for 46. Alcoa is at $82. So that's like almost 50% off if I get assigned. To me, that's free money. Because what's the question? Do you want to own Alcoa for $46? Of course I do. It's at $80-something, and I think that there's a strong long-term story there. So I'll sell 20 of those, and I consider it free money. I'm going to collect $18,000, and it's essentially free money. In fact, here I'll do it. It's if you want to look at the trade, 45.55. So what we do is go like that, and we say sell, and we say we're going to sell single, and we're going to go for 895, 950. Let's say 925. Yeah, 925 sounds fair. Good to cancel. And we do 20. And I look at that and I say, how much margin is this going to be? 10,000. I'm going to collect 18,000 bucks. It's going to cost me 10,000, 11,000 in margin. So it's an efficient trade. May fill, may not fill, whatever. Okay. And so to me, that's free money. I got $18,000 for promising. It's like if you go into a Mercedes dealership and you look at a brand new $100,000 Mercedes, and the dealer says, "I tell you what, I'll pay you now $10,000 if you agree to buy this Mercedes for $55,000 if it goes on sale." And you're gonna sit there and you're gonna go, "What are you talking about? Why would you do that? What do you?" He goes, "If it doesn't go on sale, you keep the money. You keep the $10,000 if it doesn't go on sale. But if it does go on sale, you have to come and buy it for $55,000 instead of $100. What are you gonna do? You're gonna say, "Okay." You wouldn't be in the Mercedes dealership if you couldn't afford it. So the point is, the guy's telling you that it's like, if you want to buy it, I'm going to pay you to promise to buy it if it goes on sale. That's what short put selling is. So why would I turn this down? I like Alcoa. I'd like to buy them. They're $82. But if you tell me I can buy it for 46, yes, I will make room in my portfolio for Alcoa. So that's how that one works. Oh, and again, I'm sorry, I forgot the other point. If something goes wrong, all I have to do now is look. These I'm selling for 9. These guys are going to be these are 450. So I can roll my 20 short 55s to 40 short 40s. That's without going out in time. But if it's 2029, they can probably go lower. But I can roll these, and as long as I'm willing to buy. So if I'm willing to buy 4,000 shares at $40 minus 5 at 35, then there's really no reason not to sell the 55s because I can roll to that level. And that's where I start, though. I start by already imagining something goes terribly wrong and I have to roll and I'm going to double down. And that's how I pick my amount. So owning 4,000 shares at $35 is what, $120,000. Owning 2,000 shares at 55 is $110,000. So obviously, either way is fine with me. It doesn't really drastically change the equation, but it does give us a much lower strike. We get to drop our strike by another 30%. So that's how that decision's made. It's made by looking at your worst case and deciding on what you're willing to live with and what will fit in your portfolio. And if I own 4,000 shares of Alcoa at $35 each is $140,000, right? What's my margin requirement? $70,000. How much is an allocation block in the long-term portfolio? $100,000, $200,000 actually. So it's not even an allocation block if I get assigned. So Gabor is saying, how much would you pay for AA in the $700 a month portfolio? I wouldn't. It's too expensive. It doesn't fit. So I would not buy Alcoa in the $700 a month portfolio. It is too expensive of a stock to play in that portfolio. You can't just, when you allocation blocks, right? Generally, if you have a $100,000 portfolio or less, you should be dividing your allocation blocks into 10. So that means you have 10 $10,000 blocks. And anything you do should fit inside that $10,000 block. So therefore, if you get assigned one share of Alcoa, it's $80. So it's $8,000 to get assigned one share. So you can only play with one contract. And if you can only play with one contract, you can't double down because you're going to break your allocation block. You can't roll, you're going to break your allocation block. You can't sell it. You can't have two contracts because you'll break your allocation block. So effectively, you're completely straitjacketed into whatever position you pick. That's no way to play. Therefore, don't play. You can't make money. You can't generate an income. You can't be flexible. It's insane to buy a position like that. You are, when you only have $100,000, you can't play with $80 stocks. Really, if you have $100,000, the most stock that you should possibly be putting into your portfolio is maybe a couple at $40, but really you want to stick in the 20s. If you have $1 million portfolio, you're going to have $2 million of buying power. And then you divide that by 20 and you have $100,000 allocation blocks. You should divide by, you should have more positions in a bigger portfolio. So once you get up to a couple $100,000, $1 million, now you divide it by 20 allocation blocks and then decide how much you can afford. And like I said, if we get assigned 4,000 shares of Alcoa at net 35, which is so ridiculous anyway, it's like I'd be thrilled to own them. But if you get assigned 4,000 shares at 35, that's $140,000. $140,000 of a stock requires 50% of that in margin, and that's conservative, not even a portfolio account. But it would require 50% in margin, so $70,000. So that means if I have a $100,000 to $200,000 allocation block, $70,000 I can easily double down on. So that's not even a full allocation block. So I have no worries at all about being assigned. And again, we're talking about being assigned an $82 stock at $35. It's like, please assign me this stock anytime you can. Larry says, in terms of hedging, you have SQQ and TNA, which index does that portfolio correlate to? It's really and SPY. So yeah, really we're pretty diversified. So it's really more of an S&P thing. We're not heavily in the NASDAQ, but the trick is, I think if the market's going to collapse, it's going to be a NASDAQ collapse. So I don't want to be all in on the SPY side. I think the NASDAQ is going to take a massive hit. So we gave up on TZA because the math wasn't working on TZA anymore, but TNA is obviously the corollary. TNA is a good short. So what do I think is going to go wrong with the market? I think the consumers are going to collapse, and that's going to kill the Russell for sure. That's problem number one. Problem number two is I think that the sheer size of the IPOs that are coming out, the entire NASDAQ is like 40-something trillion dollars, and 70% of that is the Magnificent Seven and company. I mean, including Qualcomm and Avgo and things like that. Qualcomm, Broadcom, and Micron. When you include those other guys that are attached to that group, the NASDAQ is almost entirely those companies. Nvidia, a $4 or $5 trillion company, can't keep charging 200% markups on their chips. Other people will start making chips, and the price of chips will come down, and their margins will collapse, and then everybody's gonna say, I can't own Nvidia for 200 times earnings, and boom, the whole thing falls apart. But the other problem is you've got SpaceX, Anthropic, and OpenAI effectively almost $4 trillion between them of market cap. So they are demanding a market cap of 10% of the entire NASDAQ is going to be added to the NASDAQ. And they are going to require about, let's say, $200 billion of cash to go into them. Where is this money going to come from? So either the IPOs will fail, causing a cascading failure in the NASDAQ, and this is all happening soon. Elon Musk is insane asking for $1.75 trillion. It is almost certainly going to go down after that. Somebody is going to realize this stock is no good. In fact, they just arrested the short seller, right? Whatever his name was. They just arrested the short seller guy right before Elon Musk's IPO. The timing was very interesting because he's exactly the guy who would have looked at Elon Musk's IPO and said, that's just insane. Nobody should be buying that thing. And they arrested him. Did they arrest him for good reasons? Yeah, probably. I think it was a Citron guy. I don't want to say the wrong person. So they arrested the guy most likely to criticize Elon Musk has been arrested right before Elon Musk does the world's largest IPO. But you can't get to where he is. There's no getting to his valuation in any rational measure. And so either money is just jammed into his company from God knows where, or the IPO will fail. I mean, not fail, he'll get his money. Oh, there goes the guy Phil. So either the IPO will fail or collapse after he goes public. So he'll go public at 135 and it'll be down to 125 or 110. And all of a sudden, everybody's going to question all valuations. Everyone's going to go home and go, oh my God, that IPO didn't do so good. Because he's overpricing it. He's pricing it. Mostly people do an IPO, they price it at a level where the people who come in early are rewarded. Elon Musk is coming in at a level where the people who come in early are going to get punished. But you know why? Because he knows how many idiots are out there. He knows how many people put a deposit on his self-driving system 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and still wait for it. People gave him $10,000 5 years ago for full self-driving, and it's still not there, and they haven't sued him yet. These are the same idiots that are getting money for SpaceX. So he knows they're out there, but it's definitely a situation in which the market could actually, this can cause the collapse. It's like the pets.com. It's like the one thing that causes everything else to fall apart is a sudden realization that the whole thing is bullshit. And Elon Musk may be the one who points it out. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's where I said. Last one, JC, I got to get out of here. T is way down today due to a downgrade. Do you still like it? Of course I still like it. It's still AT&T. I mean, for God's sake, they're the phone company. It may be like 120 years later, but they're still the freaking phone company. Wow, that's awful though, isn't it? But they've been deteriorating for a while. But yeah, we play AT&T to be in this range. Like 25 to 30 is really where we expect it to be. This is a little bit below. But look, they're trading at 9 times forward earnings. I mean, yeah, this year is better than next year. But they vary a lot based on what the CapEx spending is and such. But last time into earnings, they sold off. These earnings, look, their earnings are beats anyway. Why are people on their case, man? But yeah, they just crank out money. So we're gonna cash in the short calls that we sold, and then we'll wait for the next bounce, and we'll sell them again when they come back up. But behold, I mean, this is what they do. This is their channel. So they could go all the way down to 18, but then I'll start buying. But as far as this, I just watch and see what happens. Love AT&T. I mean, it's such a great thing to hold on to. All right. In fact, Maddie, my lovely daughter, she owns 2 stocks. She owns Ford and she owns AT&T. Those are her first 2 stocks at Robinhood. And but AT&T, she sold calls to cover, so she's good. And Ford is doing very well for her. Ford, I think her target is much lower than this. She's already weighing the money. But for AT&T, so I know, I remember that. And AT&T, she just bought the stock, sold the calls, and is collecting the dividends, which are 4.5%. Although I think on her basis, is like 18 or something like that. So on her basis, she's collecting, like 7%, 8% dividends on it on top of that. So she's just hanging out and waiting. And next year she'll get called away, and she'll buy something else that gives her a good dividend and a nice boost. Whoever is cheap. Like from when Maddie came in, AT&T was down here, and I was like, you got to buy AT&T below 20. And so I think she bought it down around 18, sold the $20 calls for a couple of bucks. So her basis is like 16, and she's collecting $1 in dividends. That's pretty good, right? Simple trade. She has 1,000. I don't know if she has 1,000 shares, 100 shares, whatever the hell she has. But yeah, so yes, I like AT&T because that's my daughter's one of her 2 stocks is AT&T. So that's a good thing. But not necessarily, I wouldn't say jump into it here, but I would say I have very full faith that it's going to hold up around 18 to 20 and come back. In fact, look how oversold it is already. It's down to 46. So it could go lower, but not too much lower because it makes too much money. Once you're below 10, it's kind of silly, right? Anyway, thanks everybody for coming. It's been fun, and we will do all this again next week. All right. Hopefully we learned something. Have a good day.